in addition to what you described, I haven't personally met or worked with a business owner who didn't sleep better at night when they had readily accessible cash on demand on their terms to either take advantage of a great business opportunity or to smooth out some variability or seasonality in cash flow. And by the same token, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they commingle positive net income with cash flow. And there's a big difference between the two. You can have a profitable business and have very poor cash flow. And if you think of the essence of the infinite banking concept, right, putting someone in a position of total control over how they finance the things that they need in their company, and just by virtue of putting money in the form of premium into corporate owned dividend paying life insurance contracts on key people in the business, you're not only solving for cash flow because of the cash value accumulation that occurs on a daily basis. You're paying no tax on that buildup. It's contractually guaranteed, so it can't go backward. These are things that business owners tell us they when they understand it, they truly value it because they know that that component of their balance sheet is continually rising in value and they can borrow against it on demand. No income verification, no review of the past 2 years of corporate financials or tax returns, no personal guarantees. It is a very peaceful, stress-free way of existence for a business owner and an entrepreneur when you have ready access to cash flow. And so that's how this concept in many ways can be helpful. But that was one of the primaries. The next question that came up was, how soon can I access money? Very common question. So what would you say to that?
I love that because that is often a barrier of entry for people because they think that they're going to have to leave things tied up for a really long period of time. And when you're making decisions in the business, you need a degree of liquidity. In Nelson's book, of course, all of Nelson's examples, he doesn't show anyone using a policy in the book earlier than the 5th year. Okay. And the reason that he did that is, number one, it's a static book. So he couldn't be there to tell you and give you ideas and suggestions on the fly. So that's number one reason. Number two, he wanted people to understand and recognize Parkinson's law, and that if you could commit to doing something for a number of years, then you would have a very strong, durable business, at least in relation to a whole life policy at that point, that you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. So there's a couple of reasons for that. But actually, in the equipment financing example, he said in his live seminars, he would say, well, you notice that there's enough to go buy a truck at year 2. So what would happen if we didn't then? Wouldn't that make everything better if we're being an honest banker in the situation? Mm. So it wasn't that he's suggesting don't do anything for 3 or 4 years. He was just suggesting, what would happen if you could commit to this? What would that look like from you from a mindset, human behavior perspective? But the reality is, I would say a large amount of our clients, Jayson, and maybe this is different for yourself, but a large amount of our clients, they start working with the policy almost immediately within that first year.
Oh, 100%.
I personally suggest and recommend to my clients that I want them to take a policy loan within the first 45 days. Now, even if they don't need the money, and it's not because I want them to have an outstanding loan to the insurance company. It's because in my experience, the people that practice taking policy loans and get accustomed to the push button mechanics, the email, the signing a document or what have you, receiving it in their bank account, making a loan repayment, even if they're just sending it all back right away. Now, the life insurance company probably doesn't want you doing that. They're like, why did you just take this money, take 10 grand, and now you're sending it back to me 3 weeks later? Like, that was really strange. But if you have to go through that whole rotation, there's a great deal of learning steps that take place. Maybe you're working with a financial controller or your accounting team, and they have questions or comments, or there's someone who's kind of like, you're the visionary and you're trying to lead the direction of the business, and someone's dealing with the paperwork and they want to know what's going on. Well, give them the opportunity to experience that right away. Don't wait 12 months or 18 months or 24 months to all of a sudden need a great gob of money and not have any idea what you're doing. That doesn't make any sense. So the earlier you begin the process, even if it's for testing, the better you become it's just like riding a bike. You have to get on and get started. You got to figure out how to get that stability so you're not falling over with the bike. So you can use money with most policies very, very quickly. There's the odd contract, not one that we work with very often, but there's the odd contract where maybe they might have a restriction with that particular company that says you can't access a policy loan maybe for 12 months. Okay. But far and wide, that's usually not the case. Most people are able to access policy loans within the first 30 days, often within the first 7 days. Once the policy is submitted, paid, and everything's been put together. Here's a great example. Let's say you've got business, they're going to run $200,000 worth of their revenues through a policy. All right. Most of that, a good chunk of that is earmarked for their profits anyway, but they're running capital through a policy. They have a minimum requirement and they have a maximum. So 200 is the ceiling. They can't go more above that. But let's just say, for the sake of our example, 60,000 is the minimum. Okay, well, at 60 grand is $5,000 a month. So what if you made a monthly payment of $5,000 and you got the contract started, and then you had money sitting in reserve on the bank account, and you could put 140,000 effectively into the policy as a premium to buy paid up insurance immediately, and you could do that virtually on day one, you would create a large amount of borrowing potential off of that premium that was paid and the death benefit it created. It would create a corresponding cash value, which means borrowing potential. So you could immediately begin practicing this right away, and now you have a commitment of $5,000 a month. And then you carry that forward for the rest of the year. But meanwhile, you're practicing things right away. So the ability to access capital right away and get going and get operational, it can be very, very fast once you get through the application process. So coaching process, policy design, application, boom, now you can get going.
I met with a swimming pool for like a company that essentially helps you design right through from design to your first dip in the pool. Like
I've got a gentleman like that in my strategic coach group.
Yeah, really good business. And so he operates out of the province of Ontario in Canada. And when he asked the same question, how soon can I begin to implement the process? Like, how soon can I access a policy loan? So obviously I responded, in that case, it was right away. So the moment that the policy's in force, you can begin right away. And I said, one thing to think about, because we would often share with people, you can't learn how to swim unless you get in the water. But what I shared with this entrepreneur is I said, if when you finish a pool for a customer, if you told the customer, congratulations, the pool is done, but you can't use it for another 12 months. How's your customer going to feel about that? And he said, well, not good at all. They want to use that pool right away. And of course, with whether, he does a lot of indoor pool designs with some really beautiful, like indoor pools that are just amazing. And he said, no, my customer wants to get in the water like right away. That's why they paid us to do this. And I said, well, that's why you are going to begin getting in the water, so to speak, right away. Your pool's ready. And he said, well, that's great. And so he goes through the process, and a policy loan is ridiculously simple. You get in contact with the insurance company. You can borrow against the ever increasing cash value of the policy on demand, and you're not reducing the asset's value. So in this scenario, there's no water leaving the pool. There's only more water being added. And you get to control the repayment schedule. So that's why for a business owner, it's very appealing to get in motion and to get in the process of implementing as soon as possible. Business owners like a rhythm, and they want to get this element of their business into a strong rhythm. And when you examine, if you are a business owner watching this or listening to this, if you've ever looked at your income statement and you look at both income and expenses, you are in a constant rhythm of transferring money away from your company permanently. So again, much like I do with an individual, I'll ask a business owner, how much money does your business make? Oh, we're going to make $8.5 million this year. Well, you're not going to make that. You're going to handle it. So how much do you want permanently transferred away from the business? Given that you're going to make, or for clarification, handle 8.5 million, write down how much you want permanently transferred away from the business. Now the business owner's thinking differently. Business owner's like, wait a second, what do you mean? Well, let me give you an example. Let's take a stroll down your income statement. Pick any expense item and tell me, once your company paid it, how much interest you can earn on that money ever again for as long as your company operates. 0. You've got revenue, customers are paying you. Where is that money residing? Well, it's residing in our corporate checking account. Really? Is what you think is there truly there? And we begin to go down that path of thinking. And then once they catch the truth, right, that your money must reside somewhere, if you really want to retain the earnings of the corporation versus just handling the money, then this is the perfect tool and the perfect process. How much of that do you want to control? How much of the function do you want to control? Well, I want to control 100% of it. Okay, what would the disadvantage be to controlling 100% of it? Well, none. So, logically, what disadvantage is there to getting started? I mean, Nelson would always say, right? Because when a business owner say, well, when I look at how I'm going to capitalize my system, I may not be able to fully recapture the interest that I would have paid to someone else's bank, or I may not be able to fully control how I finance this large piece of equipment for the next 3 years. Well, Nelson would say, the time's going to go by anyhow. And so we get countless testimonies from business owners who tell us just how incredibly relieved they are when they're in a position of control. And that's no surprise, given that that's why they became an entrepreneur to begin with. So it's a perfect match.